They laughed. That was their first and last mistake. For centuries, the Arcturians had watched the remnants of humanity scavenge the graveyard of their once great civilization, eking out a meager existence amongst the ruins. Commander Lewis Parker knew they were watching even now, as his salvage team approached the massive derelict the Arcturians had dismissively labeled rusty trash. But Parker also knew something the Arcturians didn't. This was no ordinary piece of space junk. This was the UESS Indomitable, the legendary supercarrier that had vanished centuries ago during humanity's first stand against the Arcturian threat. As Parker and his team boarded the Indomitable, the true nature of their mission became clear. This was more than a salvage operation. It was a last, desperate gambit to turn the tide of a war humanity was losing. The ship's hull, pitted and scorched from long-forgotten battles, was impervious to their scanning equipment. Its labyrinthine passages and cavernous hangars spoke of a scale of engineering beyond anything the remnants of humanity could now muster. But the Arcturians were not content to let their old foes poke around uncontested. As Parker's team delved deeper into the Indomitable, they found themselves confronted by a detachment of Arcturian commandos, led by the ruthless senior enforcer Linux. Outnumbered and outgunned, Parker knew they had only one chance. While his people bought time with their lives, barricading themselves behind blast doors, Parker frantically worked to access the Indomitable's main computer. With seconds to spare, he initiated the boot-up sequence. Ancient generators roared to life, energy surging through circuits that had lain dormant for generations. The Indomitable shuddered as its point defense batteries swiveled and fired with impossible precision, hurling back the stunned Arcturians. And in the flickering light of the ship's hollow displays, Parker saw something that made his heart race with a fierce, desperate hope. The Indomitable's stasis chambers held thousands of human soldiers, frozen in suspended animation, waiting for the call to arms. As the Arcturian fleet bombarded the Indomitable with everything they had, the ship's shield shrugged off the barrage with contemptuous ease. And as the ship's AI began the slow process of reviving its long-frozen crew, Parker realized that the Indomitable was more than just a relic of humanity's past glory. It was the key to their future, a future free from the Arcturian yoke. The Arcturians had laughed at rusty trash, but now, as the Indomitable roared to life, it was humanity's turn to laugh. The war had just begun anew, and this time, humanity would not go quietly into the night. They would fight, and they would win, no matter the cost. As the Indomitable's crew worked feverishly to restore the ship's systems, Commander Parker coordinated with his officers to prioritize repairs and unlock the vessel's advanced capabilities. Chief Engineer Rodriguez directed damage control teams in mending the power grid, coaxing ancient fusion reactors back to life. The air thrummed with the hum of generators and the crackle of welding torches as breaches were sealed and circuits rerouted. In the dimly lit computer core, Dr. Xiang interfaced with the Indomitable's AI, her fingers dancing across holographic displays. Terabytes of data streamed across the screens as she delved into the ship's vast archives, unlocking schematics for weapons and technologies beyond the Resistance's wildest dreams. "Commander, you need to see this," Xiang called out, her voice tight with excitement. Parker leaned in, studying the glowing diagrams that rotated above the console. Shielding systems that could absorb the fury of a solar flare, propulsion engines that could cross light years in a heartbeat, and weapons, plasma cannons, graviton torpedoes, singularity mines, each one a trump card against the Arcturian fleet. "Get these to the manufacturing deck. I want prototypes ready for field testing within the day," Parker ordered. He turned to the ship's AI, the cool female voice that now echoed through every deck. "Io, initiate production sequence alpha. It's time we even the odds." As the fabricators whirred to life, spooling out components for next-generation armaments, a cheer went up from the resistance fighters now crowding the Indomitable's halls. These men and women, drawn from 100 battered cells, saw in the mighty warship a spark of hope, a fighting chance against their oppressors. That hope, however, was tempered by grim reality. For even as the Indomitable's power grew, so too did the threat arrayed against it, Arcturian ships prowled the spaceways, scouring the star systems for any trace of rusty trash. It was only a matter of time before they found her. Parker knew they needed to strike first, to seize the initiative before the enemy could muster an overwhelming force. When Io reported the discovery of the secret research station, he saw his chance. "Prep a stealth shuttle and get me Captain Blackwood," he barked, the stirrings of a plan taking shape in his mind. If they could destroy this Project Nyx, cripple the Arcturians' ability to conjure doomsday weapons, the risks were staggering, but the potential rewards even more so. As Blackwood's commandos slipped away into the silent depths of space, the Indomitable's crew redoubled their efforts. Rodriguez and his engineers labored to repair the FTL drive, jury-rigging components and rerouting power from the ship's straining reactors. Failure was not an option. Without the ability to jump, to elude the Arcturian pursuit, they were sitting ducks. News of the stealth team's success buoyed spirits, the data haul from the research station offering tantalizing glimpses of Arcturian vulnerabilities. But the celebration was cut brutally short as warning klaxons blared across the command deck. The enemy had found them. Parker watched the tactical displays in mounting dread as Zarn's armada bore down on their position. A swarm of angular predatory shapes silhouetted against the cold light of distant stars. He heard the thunder of the Indomitable's cannons, saw the blossom of fire and debris as squadrons of drones tore into the Arcturian vanguard. The ship shuddered as return volleys pounded its shields, consoles shorting out in showers of sparks. And yet, despite the challenges, they were winning. The Indomitable's point defenses laid waste to wave after wave of attackers, Zarn's warships faltering as they slammed into a wall of tungsten and plasma. For a moment, Parker dared to dream that they would drive off the assault, grant themselves a precious reprieve. Then Io's urgent warning echoed across the bridge, and his blood ran cold. An unknown energy signature pulsing at the heart of the ship like a malevolent star, a power beyond even the Arcturians' reckoning that could spell doom or salvation for all aboard. The dark matter reactor, a whisper of myth made manifest. As Zarn's regrouping fleet prepared for another onslaught, Parker knew he faced a choice that would echo across eternity. To unleash this untested miracle, to grasp that chance of unparalleled might, even as it threatened to consume them all. It was a gamble with the highest stakes imaginable. And there, on the tattered bridge of that ghost ship reborn, staring into the maw of oblivion, Parker prepared to roll the dice. Parker's hand hovered over the reactor controls, sweat beading on his brow. The ship shuddered as another volley from Zarn's fleet hammered the shields. "Commander," Dr. Xiang's voice crackled over the comm. "I've detected an anomalous energy signature in the central core. You need to see this." Parker hesitated, then barked orders to his bridge crew. "Hold the line. I'm going to investigate." He sprinted through corridors filled with acrid smoke, ducking sparks from damaged conduits. Xiang met him at the entrance to the core, her eyes wide with a mix of fear and excitement. "It's unlike anything I've ever seen," she breathed as they entered the chamber. The sight that greeted them defied comprehension. At the heart of the room pulsed a crystalline structure, bathed in an otherworldly light. Tendrils of energy arced from its surface, connecting to the ship's systems in a complex web. "Greetings, Commander Parker." The ship's AI materialized as a holographic figure. "I am Prometheus. What you see before you is a legacy of the progenitors, an ancient race that seeded the galaxy with the means for younger civilizations to achieve greatness." Parker's mind reeled. This is what's powering the dark matter reactor? "Indeed," Prometheus confirmed, "but it is far more than a simple power source. This crystal contains the accumulated knowledge of the progenitors, including the very plans for this vessel." Xiang's fingers danced across a nearby console. "The energy readings are off the charts. If we could harness this—" A violent tremor rocked the ship. Alarms blared as Prometheus's voice took on an urgent tone. "Arcturian boarding parties have breached the hull. They are converging on this location." Parker's hand instinctively went to his sidearm. "How do we access the crystal's knowledge?" It requires a compatible organic interface, Prometheus explained. Your neural patterns suggest you may be uniquely suited for this task, Commander. However, I must warn you of the risks. The process could overwhelm your mind. The sounds of weapons fire echoed from nearby corridors. Parker's comm crackled to life with Captain Blackwood's voice. Sir, we're engaged with Arcturian commandos. That bastard Linux is leading them. We can't hold them off for long. Parker locked eyes with Xiang, determination hardening his features. We're out of options. What do I need to do? Simply make contact with the crystal, Prometheus instructed. But be warned, the power you may gain comes with great responsibility. The progenitors' hubris led to their downfall. You must not repeat their mistakes. Parker approached the pulsing crystal, its light growing more intense with each step. He could hear the firefight drawing closer, smell the acrid tang of plasma discharge. Whatever happens, he said to Xiang, make sure this knowledge isn't lost. He plunged his hands into the crystalline structure. Instantly, his world exploded into light and sensation. Knowledge flooded his consciousness, the secrets of dark matter manipulation, the true nature of space-time, glimpses of civilizations risen and fallen across eons. Through the haze of information, Parker became aware of the battle raging around him. The Indomitable's systems responded to his thoughts, weapons firing with preternatural accuracy. He saw Zarn's mighty armada scattered like leaves in a storm, helpless against the gravitational distortions now emanating from the ship. But more than weapons or tactics, Parker felt the weight of responsibility settling upon him. He understood now that the progenitor's gift was not meant for conquest, but for stewardship. As his mind expanded to encompass this cosmic perspective, he grappled with the enormity of the choices that lay ahead. The immediate threat had passed, but Parker knew this was only the beginning. Humanity's path forward would be shaped by how they wielded this newfound power. As the Indomitable hung in space, no longer a relic but a harbinger of a new era, Parker steeled himself for the challenges to come. Parker gasped as he withdrew his hands from the crystal, his mind turning from the cosmic influx of knowledge. The Indomitable hummed with newfound power, its systems responding to his very thoughts. Through the view screen, he watched Zarn's once mighty armada scatter like cosmic dust. Status report, he managed, steadying himself against a nearby console. Enemy fleet in full retreat, sir, Lieutenant Chen reported, her voice tinged with awe. Our new weapon systems, they're beyond anything we've ever seen. Dr. Xiang approached, her eyes wide. Commander, the data we've extracted from the crystal, it's revolutionary, but the implications... I know, Parker cut her off, his voice heavy with the weight of responsibility. Gather the senior staff. We need to plan our next move. Hours later, the command deck buzzed with activity. Chief Engineer Rodriguez's hands flew across holographic displays as he outlined their latest developments. The anti-graviton torpedoes are ready for field testing, he reported, and the chronoton disruptors, well, they make our old plasma cannons look like slingshots. Parker nodded, his enhanced mind processing the information at lightning speed. And what about the crystal's energy matrix? A hush fell over the room. Rodriguez exchanged a glance with Xiang before answering. We've barely scratched the surface, sir, but if our calculations are correct, we could reconfigure it into a weapon capable of destabilizing subspace itself. The implications hung heavy in the air. Parker closed his eyes, grappling with the enormity of such power. When he opened them, his gaze was steel. Plot a course for Calrathia, he ordered. It's time we took the fight to the heart of the Arcturian Empire. As the Indomitable prepared for its fateful jump, Parker retreated to his quarters. His expanded consciousness grappled with glimpses of possible futures, timelines where humanity emerged triumphant, and others where their actions unleashed cosmic devastation. A chime at his door broke his reverie. Captain Blackwood entered, his face grim. Infiltration teams are prepped and ready, he reported. But sir, are you sure about this? The power we're dealing with could reshape the galaxy, Parker finished. I know, Marcus, but we can't afford to hesitate. Not now. The ship shuddered as it entered slipstream. Through the viewport, reality itself seemed to bend and warp. Parker's enhanced senses could almost feel the fabric of space-time stretching around them. They emerged at the edge of the Calrathia system, a jewel-like world surrounded by the might of the Arcturian defense fleet. But where once such a sight would have filled them with dread, now it was the Arcturians who would know fear. "Launch stealth probes," Parker commanded. "I want every defensive installation mapped and Vortax's citadel pinpointed." As the data streamed in, the command deck erupted into action. Blackwood's team deployed, their advanced cloaking technology rendering them invisible to Arcturian sensors. Rodriguez's antimatter warhead stood ready, primed to unleash devastation. The battle joined with fury unmatched in the annals of galactic history. Human resistance fighters poured through newly opened slipstream corridors, their ships equipped with weapons that defied the laws of physics. The Indomitable's firepower rained destruction upon the Arcturian forces, their once impenetrable defenses crumbling. From the planet's surface, Lady Executor Talara watched in disbelief as the Empire's mighty fleets were scattered like leaves in a cosmic wind. Her fingers hesitated over the controls that could reactivate the planetary shields. In that moment of indecision, she saw the stark truth of the Arcturians' brutal reign and made her choice. The shields flickered and died. Rodriguez's antimatter warheads found their mark, Vortax's citadel vanishing in a blinding flash of annihilation. As the echoes of battle faded, Parker's voice rang out across all frequencies. "This is Commander Parker of the Earthship Indomitable, to all remaining Arcturian forces. Your supreme commander is dead. Your fleets lie in ruins. Surrender now or face total annihilation." Silence reigned. Then a defiant transmission crackled through. Vortax, somehow having survived the Citadel's destruction, snarled his refusal. Parker's heart made. He turned to Xiang, seeing the fear in her eyes as she realized what came next. With a nod to Rodriguez, he made his way to the crystal chamber. As he placed his hands upon the pulsing matrix, Parker felt the awesome power surge through him. Space itself began to warp and twist around Calrathia. Arcturian ships disintegrated at the molecular level, while human vessels remained untouched. Through it all, Parker strained to control the cosmic forces now at his command. One miscalculation, one moment of lost focus, and entire star systems could be torn asunder. As the subspace shockwave rippled outward, a new transmission cut through the chaos. Talara's voice, thick with emotion, rang out. "This is Lady Executor Talara of the Arcturian High Command. To all Imperial forces, we surrender, unconditionally and immediately." The words echoed across the battle-scarred system as Parker slowly, carefully withdrew his consciousness from the crystal's embrace. Humanity had won, but at what cost? And what challenges would this new era of progenitor technology bring? As the Indomitable hung in high orbit over a changed Calrathia, Parker stared out at the vast expanse of stars. The war was over, but he knew their greatest trials were only beginning. The victory over Calrathia brought no joy to the Indomitable's bridge. As reports flooded in from across the galaxy, the true cost of their actions became horrifyingly clear. "Commander," Dr. Xiang's voice cracked as she spoke, her eyes fixed on a holographic display. "The spatial disruptions, they're spreading exponentially." Parker watched in mute horror as entire star systems blinked out of existence, consumed by gravitational waves of unimaginable power. The death toll scrolled past, numbers so vast they lost all meaning. "It's not just our universe," Xiang continued, her fingers dancing across the console. "We're detecting incursions of exotic matter from alternate realities. It's consuming everything in its path." The weight of responsibility crashed down on Parker's shoulders. He had wielded the power of the progenitors, and in doing so, he had unleashed a force beyond his comprehension. "There has to be a way to stop it," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Xiang's eyes met his, filled with a terrible certainty. "There is, but the cost." She explained the grim reality. To halt the cascade, Parker would need to return to the crystal matrix. He would have to sacrifice his very existence, becoming a living conduit to stabilize the fabric of space-time. The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. Captain Blackwood stepped forward, his face a mask of anguish. "Sir, there has to be another way. We can't lose you." Parker placed a hand on his old friend's shoulder. "We don't have a choice, Marcus. Trillions are dying every second. I have to try." He turned to address the bridge crew, his voice steady despite the turmoil within. "If I fail, if the reaction can't be stabilized, you know what needs to be done. Captain Blackwood will assume command. Overload the dark matter reactor. Create a supernova that will consume this entire system." The unspoken words hung heavy in the air. It might be the only way to save reality itself. Parker made his way to the central core, each step feeling like a march towards oblivion. The crystal pulsed with an otherworldly light, as if sensing the magnitude of what was about to transpire. He placed his hands on the crystalline surface, and reality fractured around him. An infinitude of possibilities exploded across his consciousness. He saw the birth and death of countless universes, each one a fleeting spark in the cosmic dance of creation and entropy. In that transcendent moment, Parker understood the burden the progenitors had carried, the awesome responsibility of wielding such power, and the tragic inevitability of their failure. With supreme effort, Parker focused his will. He became a singular point, a nexus of possibility. Reality itself bent around him as he channeled the full extent of his newfound abilities. On the bridge, the crew watched in reverent silence as readings stabilized. The cosmic storm began to subside, reality knitting itself back together. But even as order was restored, Parker felt his human essence unraveling. His mind burned away in the fires of infinite knowledge, his consciousness expanding beyond the confines of mortal form. A final burst of energy exploded outward from the subspace nexus. In that poetic release, James Parker ceased to exist as a man and became something more. On the Indomitable's bridge, Captain Blackwood stood in somber reflection. Dr. Xiang approached, a datapad in her hand. "His final message," she said softly, offering the device. Blackwood read the words, each one etched into his soul. He looked out at the stars, forever changed by what had transpired here. The war was won, but the price had been beyond measure. As the Indomitable prepared to depart the shattered Calrathia system, Blackwood knew that their greatest challenges still lay ahead. The long road towards peace and understanding between races had only just begun.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.